Hi everybody, Bart the Nature Guy here. I just wanted to do a tent 101 with you all today with some of the students I've been teaching. It's been live, but I also wanted to provide a video for those of you that don't have an opportunity to have me teach one of your live classes. The videos are kind of done in one take, so there's nothing fancy with these, but I really enjoy sharing kind of different opportunities in nature, and we'll keep doing that throughout the year. So you can see behind me I have two tents, one giant tent, a big one, one in the back there that's a little bit smaller, more backpacking style, but it is considered a 3-person tent. This is more considered a 6 to 8-person tent. Next to me is a fire pit and mowed grass, so it's very typical to not be in true, like just deep into the backcountry when people are camping. A lot of people pull up to state parks. The grass has been mowed. There's a picnic table there. There's a fire pit, and that is typically what most people do when they camp. Minnesota, we have the Boundary Waters area, and a lot of people do some camping out of canoes as well. And there's a lot of chance to bring some bigger items, because you do have something that's can hold those, whether it be a canoe or a car. And so I thought, and then there's also, like over on this side, the backpacking side, which is where you're carrying everything: food, water, tent, everything that you have with you needs to be on your back. And that's a very different style of tent for a couple different things. And so I thought I'd go through some of those differences with you. So number one is there's different parts to a tent. So there's kind of 5 key components to a tent. One is the actual tent itself. So right there, tent. And if you can see that red bar going up there and across, and then you can kind of see the black bar right here, and that is actually the stakes and actually the poles. So we have the tent, we have the poles. These stand up in a couple different ways. This tent over on this side actually freestands. It stands up on it by itself. This one does as well, not as easily, but some tents need to have actually like strings and ropes attached to them to actually have them stand up, and that pressure is actually what brings it up. I tend to look for tents that stand on their own like this. It makes it a little bit easier. I also have younger children, and even younger children when I bought these a few years ago, and I need to go hands-free real quick. A lot of times, having a 2-year-old run around a campsite, you got to be able to kind of stop what you're doing. And so, and also these the strings that come off of these. So we'll talk about those in a second. I have some kind of camping hacks that I like to do as much as possible to keep the tents from falling down once I put them up. So, so we have the tent itself. We have the stakes. We also have, right, if you can see that's a ground tarp, and on this side I actually put them away from the tent, so you can see that over there. That's a ground tarp as well. It kind of is the thing that you start with the most. It's really the place that we all start in life. It's like where we were born. It's like where we got planted, like it's just, this is where it's going to be. And it's also just checking out what size it is. If you're deep in the woods, you're trying to find a spot to go. Here, that tent, just to kind of show you the size of it, I'll walk over here real quick with you. You can kind of see it. It basically is the ground tarp really just separates you from your tent from the ground. I was out here this morning really early. There is so much dew in the grass. My shoes were completely soaked wet so fast, and so this is actually something that's really important in a tent, especially in the Midwestern states. If you're in the Western states, you're in Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, even California, the humidity levels don't have the impact on camping that they do here. And so you might even see somebody put up a tent here, right there. And you can see that there's some space between that, right? I'm gonna do that right there. See that space between the tent and the pole? That's actually where a rain tarp would go over the top. So you have your ground tarp. You actually have a rain tarp that goes over the top and protects you from any sort of weather, but it also really in Minnesota mornings will really protect you from, in Midwestern mornings as a whole, that morning dew that gets on everything. If you were just to camp with just this tent like this, with those screens, if you can see that black screen right there, you're gonna wake up, your sleeping bag is gonna be soaked. And it'll be a perfectly sunny day, but you'll wake up completely soaked. The inside of your tent will be soaked. And so I have the ground tarp over here as well. You'll have the rain tarp, and then you have the stakes. So you have the tent, the poles, the ground tarp, the rain tarp, and the last one is the stakes, what sticks it to the ground. Those can be really different. Stakes don't always go into the ground real easy. If you're on a really sandy part of a campsite, the stakes will oftentimes pull out, and so you might have to find some different ways to adjust to that. Ways I've adjusted sometimes is actually using large rocks or logs and tying the strings to those and then stretching them out and making sure they don't move very well. I've actually, in Alaska one time, I was in a tent about this size and actually had to take rocks and line the inside of the tent because we were on a rocky beach and the tent stakes never went in. These tent stakes are actually, I'll bring you over this way. These tent stakes are actually pretty small, so they're not very big. And trying to go in between big boulders that were like 2, 3, 4 inches, we were able to clear a little bit of a spot for where we're actually going to sleep. But it actually wasn't that easy. Every tent has usually a set of stakes like this. Some actually have some little built-in. This is something that I actually changed in this tent design, but this is the bag that the tent comes in. I don't know if you can see that pocket on there right there. That's actually where they wanted the tent stakes to go. I found it not that easy, and you'll find little built-ins like that on a lot of tents that are trying to support lack of losing things, because you put the tent stakes right with the bag. But I actually ended up getting my own Ziploc bag and putting the tents inside. What I found is when you're trying to slide the tent into this bag, it's super tight. The tent would actually hang up on the stakes that you had put inside already. So it's just one of those little things to look at. Another thing with tents is a lot of times, I'm going to show you the bag here. So this bag has all these little tags on the top, but right there is the directions. And so a lot of times these tents, especially when it's nighttime, if you haven't put it up a lot, most of the tents nowadays actually have the directions built on to the bag at some level, and you can find those really easily, and it can be a huge help. But I always say, please practice your tent in good weather when you're actually able just to kind of take your time with it and learn it, because there's going to be a time where you and your friends are going to be like, hey, I'm going to go out and we're going to leave Friday night and we're going to leave early, and then all of a sudden it's like 7 o'clock before you get on the road and your campsite's 3 hours away and it's a little rainy. It's really buggy in Minnesota sometimes, and all of a sudden you get there, it's totally dark, and you're trying to set up a tent that you really haven't done before. So getting to know your tent and putting it up in a variety of different conditions, in the wind even, just practicing, it's a huge help and can definitely change the game when you really need it, especially if there's rain coming down. And if you notice this tent, this is like a 2-season tent. It actually is screened over the whole top. It really allows the heat to get out of it, which I really like in hot summer conditions, because just like getting in a hot car, if you have that rain tarp over the top of this and it's sitting there baking all day in 80-degree sun in like a July Minnesota day, that can get really hot in there, and your bag is really warm when you get in it. It's just kind of gross. And so I really like having the air move through the tent and having those stakes or the kind of some space up there. So now, a couple different things with this tent that I wanted to point out in comparison to the other tent. So if you see these clips, I'm going to bring you down. So you got all these little clips right here. They just pop off and they just clip on, and that's what actually stretches the tent out. It's really nice in comparison to this other tent. I'm going to walk you over to this tent. And if you can see this tent, you can see these tent poles kind of go into sleeves right here. It's almost like a sock, and it stretches the pole through here. And this also has some clips attached to it as well. But a couple different things with that design. This can be really nice in good weather, but if it's dark, if it's wet, trying to slide these poles through, it's like if you try to put a wet, say you had to get ready for school real fast and you had to throw your sock on. You just hopped out of the shower, you're trying to get dressed and you're trying to throw a sock on over a wet foot. It's not fun at all. And so I got a bright sun, guys, so I'm just letting you know I'm squinting really hard, but it's just because the sun's in my face. So but so I'm not looking as grumpy as I actually am. So and but these kind of sleeves is a design. It's really good. You'll see it on large tents a lot. I tend to prefer the clip style. So this whole tent has all metal clip, all just kind of the plastic clips. So if you can see me compared to this is actually a 3-person tent. This is not a lot of space for 3 people. I would say it's kind of 2 plus gear, or maybe a couple people and a dog. You have the rain tarp here, or the ground tarp right there. Sorry about that. So the ground tarp's here. Now these freestanding tents, what's nice is I can actually just pick this up and set it on top. So I just set it on top of the ground tarp, super easy. You can see that this has a kind of a unique design. With the poles, it actually has like a hinge built in. So there's actually, this whole tent has only 2 poles. So it has this kind of Y shape right here, goes down to each corner. And then there's a cross beam that comes in secondarily to kind of stretch the tent out and create kind of a little bit more space inside the tent versus kind of a straight angle. All it does is bring it out. So it gives you actually a lot of headspace when you're sitting up, especially for multiple people. Now this tent over here is a tent I've spent both the tents I spent a lot of days in, but this one I used to travel in a lot. I like the size of it because it kind of gave me almost like a home feeling when I was traveling. And I was oftentimes not in like backcountry. I was actually in more like city park or state park style things. So it was mowed grass just like you see. And I would just take the extra 10 minutes to put it up because it was a little bit bigger. But if you look inside here, yeah, like a table and chair in here. On this side, you have a cot, and then also I laid down a blanket just so you could kind of see. That's actually the size of almost like a full mattress. So you could actually put an air mattress in here just fine. And you have space, and like you maybe like put your cooler underneath here. You can actually have a lot of space in here, especially for foul weather if you're gonna be stuck in here for a couple days. Me and buddies would come in here, we were able to sit around the table and hang out. So lots of space if you needed to, especially for bad weather. There's not a rain tarp on this one. The rain tarp is that large mat, kind of white, let's see this way with my finger. That is the rain tarp that goes over the top of that. Rain tarps are kind of difficult to figure out because they're really odd shaped. They're meant to kind of deflect rain, and if you notice, this tent isn't like squared off anyways. So number 2, it can be really awkward to put on. I got pretty good at it, but it took a lot of practice to get it right. The other thing that this tent comes with is what they call a vestibule. So on the front here, it would actually come out and create like a secondary room that was just grass on the bottom, but it really allowed me to put coolers, gear, all that stuff, keep my shoes out. Like if it was raining, they'd actually stay dry underneath there. So those vestibules can be really nice when you're doing like camping for multiple days, where, especially if you have bad weather, where you can kind of keep your gear outside that gets wet, let it dry a little bit, that sort of thing. So these backpacking tents are a little bit different, a little bit tighter, but they definitely let you travel and put it on your back. And you can see the rain tarp is over there as well. So both tents, once you get good with this, you can get this done in about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes tops. This is more 10 to 15 minutes for this kind of tent. And that's, again, just a little tent 101, some of the differences between the clips, the poles, and the last maybe piece I would talk about in regards to these poles. These are heavy duty poles. You can kind of see this metal piece right here, kind of goes between the 2 pieces, the 2 black fiberglass pieces right there. That is a joint where these poles kind of join together, and these poles can be really long. So you can see my shadow there picking this up, but I don't know if you can really see this. These poles like get giant. They're huge, they're heavy, and they definitely can be hard to work with, especially if you are deep in the woods. Those poles are going to go shooting off into the woods as you're trying to put the tent up and try to make space, especially when you're trying to slide them through those sleeves. You need to get them all the way back out and then slide them, and then start them right there and start sliding them through that way. That can be really difficult to try to do, where the clips are a little bit easier. With the backpacking, they don't add those extra, that metal piece that was just between those 2 fiberglass poles right there. They actually avoid those, and so it's just a little break right here, if you can see that right there. And these pieces slide together, and the joint is a lot, not as strong, I guess is the easiest way to put it. It's just, so it's lighter, but you also have to be kind of more careful with it as well. So it can't take as much kind of throwing it around. So you got to kind of be gentle with these in a different way. They are strong, but again, you got to make sure that things kind of stay solid with these. It's easy to have these break. Last year I did a video on what to do if these do break. I will definitely send that out as well. So long video, but lots to talk about in regards to tents. There's a tent 101, ground tarp, tent, poles, rain tarp, and stakes to set it into the ground. So 2 different kind of styles, kind of family style, backpacking style. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bart the Nature Guy. Peace out. Bye.